Hello and welcome back to Albion Online. I am here in my house having a bit of fun dropping off some things that I've gathered, and today we're going to talk about memory. Yes. You realize how much stuff you forget about? Dang near everything, actually. Truth is, we think we remember everything that happens to us, but the truth is, as life goes on, we just plain forget quite near everything. Just the very most important, precious memories stick with us, and most of the things we should remember vanish into the ether. And we don't realize that they're gone because we don't remember them at all. Till you try to remember what happened when you were a child, and it's kind of a blank. You got a few powerful memories, and they're there, but almost everything else is gone. I know I'm right, and that's why my recommendation is to start writing stuff down. Now, you could do a notepad with a paper in your pocket, or you could be modern and do something like Google Keep or some other note-taking app of your choice. Really doesn't matter. But what I have found is that there's a lot of times when I just do not feel like I have any good ideas. Maybe after a long day of work, I think to myself, I just have nothing going on upstairs. And in those moments, it's really nice to have ideas that I've written down. Maybe right after I took a shower, first thing in the morning. Maybe during my morning walk when I'm fresh and I just woke up a little while ago. You get these good ideas. And in those moments, it's good to record them. Maybe it's something inspirational that you saw in a television show or a movie or something. Doesn't really matter. It's just, these are things that you can draw off of later on when you don't have inspiration, when you don't feel like you can really remember or think clearly. You can go back to your notes and you can get some ideas of things that you forgot about. It's really useful, and I absolutely believe that anybody who's not doing this would benefit very much from doing it. Not to mention the fact that if you ever want to write your memoirs, well, it's a good idea to have some content material to draw off of. It's not a very complicated thing, but it's a real game changer when it comes to writing or content creation or really anything that requires you to be creative, because truth is we're not creative all the time. Sometimes we feel very creative and motivated, but there's often a lot of dry spells, and it's really, really nice. It's great to be able to have that well of canned inspiration that you can use as a segue to kind of jumpstart your motivation when your mind has become a bit of a blank. Or if it's a journal, just to retain some of those small memories that might otherwise vanish into the void if you did not record them. I also think that writing things down just plain helps your memory as a whole, because if you take the time to meditate on it a little bit, to think about it, to deliberately write it down, you're committing it to a more solid part of your memory than if you just let it pass by in one ear and out the other, as they say. These are some things that have helped me quite a bit, and the more I do them, the better off I seem to be. So, without further ado, I was also thinking about how bad we are. And I guess this ties into the same basic topic. How bad we are at understanding time horizons. So we tend to think of everything as being either right now, like it's an emergency, it's a red alert, it's happening right now, we have to do something today, this moment. Or we put it into the very, very farthest indefinite category. You know, I'll get to it someday, but I got my whole life to get to that. Life isn't really typically something you want to put into either of those two buckets. Usually things that are important do take time. Kind of like planting crops. You're going to plant them, and you're going to have to wait for a while. They do not instantly pop out of the ground fully grown the same day you put the seeds in. And yet, they do grow during a definite season. If you go plant your seeds and then you just forget about them forever, and you come back 50 years later, you're not going to have a nice, bountiful harvest because you missed the season. You have to have some moderation there to understand there's a sense of immediacy, of urgency, but that does not necessarily mean that everything has to be instantaneous. Learning to understand those two things and kind of pick a middle way approach to the various things you have going on in your life is a useful way to have a more mature attitude toward existentialism. To understand you do have time. You probably have more time than you realize to let things work out. And yet you also don't have unlimited time to waste because a decade goes by quite rapidly in hindsight. A lifetime goes by quite rapidly. And yet that also doesn't mean that everything needs to happen today. I call it something in the neighborhood of aggressive patience. You have to act decisively, deliberately. But that doesn't mean you have to rush. You need to figure out how to be more firm and rigid than a damp noodle. Because if you don't have some conviction, you won't have any fortitude to accomplish anything. But you also don't want to be so absolutely unbendable, unflexible, that you are brittle and incapable of being somewhat flexible in life. We always want to put things into buckets of absolute terms. That something is absolutely good or absolutely bad. That a person is purely angelic or entirely demonic. And yet the truth is that all things in life are some gradient, somewhere in between multiple states. Imagine if you're taking a shower, you probably want to use hot water, warm water. Not so hot that it's boiling, that it's going to burn you alive, but you want to take a hot, steaming shower. And if it's a hot day, you want a nice cold glass of water. You want to drink cold water, but not so absolutely cold that it's turned to ice. So you don't want an absolute extreme of cold, and you don't want an absolute extreme of warm. But you do want the water to be cold when you're drinking it and hot when you're bathing with it. That's how it is with life. You have to figure out how to Have a sense of moderation in your life. Moderation to know that you have to be serious about the time you have and don't waste it. But also don't panic and expect everything to be immediate. Have convictions. To be hot on certain things and cold on other things. Don't just be lukewarm on everything with no opinion on anything. No values of any kind, because you don't want to ever pick anything other than the absolute middle. That's like saying you're going to drink lukewarm water and you're also going to bathe in lukewarm water. And you're never going to have anything hot or anything cold. You're just going to have that absolute middle. That's not satisfying or productive. And so, while you do want to avoid extremes, because if you're boiling yourself to death with hot water in the bath and you're licking a cube of ice to get hydrated, that's not going to be good. But if you avoid the extremes, the boiling water and the ice cube, and you opt for a reasonable amount of polarization to where you do allow different things in different seasons and different places. Now that is pragmatism in my books, and that's a good thing. To be moderate, but not so middle of the road that you don't have any values. And it's hard to do that because we always want some sort of an absolute solution that we can apply to everything. You know, you have one preset, you apply it to everything, and it's all just, you know, it's great because you've got the one answer that works for everything. And yet that's not how life is. Life doesn't work that way because you can't apply one rule to every situation. You can look at things like politics, and the truth is that there's good points made by people of varying different opinions. And no matter how much you'd like to say that one side's right and the other side's wrong, the truth is both sides are right about some things and wrong about some things. And when you understand that, you have to allow room for differences and just understand that there's going to be polarization. You can't have a world where cold water exists and where warm water exists and where you mix the two together without losing both. You have to keep them separate. People with different ideas are going to be in their own silos to some degree, and that's okay. But we still have to have respect. We still have to have balance. We still have to have moderation. Finding room for differences without eliminating the things that make people distinct can seem like a challenging and messy endeavor. But failing to do so is kind of like the Borg in Star Trek. It's to assimilate all ideas and to eliminate all individuality in the process. If you distill all people into data points only, and you don't believe that there's anything sacred about a human soul, you lose something magical about what it means to be human. And I know that there are some people who might say that the human experience is meaningless indeed. And maybe they're right. But as long as we're living and we're thinking and we're able to ponder our existence, it's important for us to believe that our lives have value. Because the moment we stop believing that, we eliminate all reason for us to continue asking questions. No one cares about finding more out about a lost cause. So it's important for us to have our convictions, to have our beliefs, to have the things that we fight for and advocate for, and yet also, deep down inside, to remain neutral enough on all the big questions of life to know that life is good, whether we win or lose, whether we agree or disagree. And we must make peace, regardless of what the circumstances are. Thank you very much for watching. Good night.